Coming off a national TV win, we'll discuss whether or not the Chicago Blackhawks are for real. We'll discuss potential landing spots for Quinn Hughes, and we'll go through NHL superlatives as voted on by the players in this week's athletic poll.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. I am Nick Zararis, the host of Locked On Oilers. That is my good friend, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Penguins, Hunter Hodies, and we want to thank everyone that is making Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. Locked On NHL is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. So, Hunter, my friend, a whole lot to get to today. National window last night, the Wednesday TNT HBO pocket here down in the States. So not a lot of games, but we'll talk about the Blackhawks. We'll start there. They looked really good against the Rangers last night, who probably are heading in the wrong direction. Our second segment, we will pivot to a Quinn Hughes conversation and why, if the Canucks are seriously going to entertain trade offers for Hughes, they should probably get moving on that sooner rather than later, and they could get a better return. And then our final segment, we will discuss a variety of superlatives that The Athletic had a number of players in the NHL vote on anonymously. So to start out, Hunter, we have been waiting for the Blackhawks to get going. Now, they've had Bedard a few years now. We have watched them draft a litany of guys. I think it's 11 first-round picks over the last 4 years. They have filled the coffer up with guys, and we have been waiting for any signs of life to come from this team. And ironically, watching the game last night, the TNT panel talked about Jeff Blashill being the coach and his time working with John Cooper down in Tampa and his experience working with the Red Wings. And they talked a lot about Connor Bedard's commitment to playing 200-foot hockey and his defense. Something conspicuously missing from that conversation were the numbers Spencer Knight is putting up right now. And I want to start the conversation with Knight, and we'll extrapolate from there. So he's got 21 starts this year. In 21 starts, he's got a 2.5 goals against average, great, and a .916 save percentage, also great. And then you go and look at the underlyings. Evolving Wild has him at 23 goals saved above expected in 21 starts. Spencer Knight is saving 1 goal per game for the Blackhawks right now, and that should tell you a little bit about the underlying numbers we're going to discuss in a minute. But kudos to the Blackhawks for taking a roll of the dice. Knight had a bumpy road in Florida, had some off-the-ice stuff where he took some time away from hockey, and he's playing lights out right now. If I had a Vezina vote, I would seriously consider giving him my vote.
He's saving a lot of the Blackhawks' really rough defensive metrics because, Nick, if you go on natural stat trick, you look at some of their 5-on-5 metrics, they allow the 4th most scoring chances at 5-on-5 this year. If you go to high danger chances allowed, it's still the 4th most in the league. They're bleeding a lot of chances every game, but Spencer Knight is there to save them just because he's having an all-world season. If you go to Money Puck and you look at their metrics, Nick, Logan Thompson leads the league with goals saved above expected, 22.7, followed by Ilya Sorokin, Jeremy Swayman, and then Spencer Knight with 17.9. And Spencer Knight, he's ahead of Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, Hellebuck. I know Hellebuck's been hurt. You know, he's ahead of some really damn good goaltenders. It goes to show how special of a season he's having for Chicago this year. And yeah, a good part of their success as well is Connor Bedard and how he's potentially playing his way onto the Team Canada Olympic roster. 19 goals, 42 points in 30 games. I think, Nick, some fans were kind of waiting for this type of breakout, but he's been sensational. Tyler Bertuzzi has 26 points this year. Again, but you look at their overall record, they're 13-17. So they're still below 500 when you combine the overtime losses with the regulation losses. At the end of the day, they're in the race. And I think that's a really good positive step for them, considering the way these last several seasons have gone. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs at the end of the season. I'd be a little surprised, but this type of season is so good for a lot of the young players' development because you get to play in these high stakes games. You get to show the progress that you're making as an overall team. But if they can fix some of those defensive metrics, that will go a long way. I still think, though, it's maybe a year, if not too early for them to make the playoffs, but that's just my opinion.
So right now they're 13, 11, and 6.
Yeah.
They have a -2 goal differential. They're in one of the wild card spots. They're on pace for 87.5 points. That would be the lowest amount of points a wild card team has ever made the playoffs within this format. In the wild card format, the lowest point total a team has ever made the playoffs with is 92. It's not out of the question that the Blackhawks make the postseason, but I think that would largely be a reflection of the state of the West as opposed to maybe a statement about the Blackhawks. And Bedard, as you said, 19 goals, 23 assists. He's averaging 3 shots on goal per game. He's got 101 shots on goals through 30 games, really doing nice stuff there. 18.8 shooting, just really good stuff. And then you had alluded to it before. They're 29th in scoring chance share, 31st in shot share, 22nd in goal share, 31st in expected goal share, 31st in high danger chance share. They are 11th in 5-on-5 shooting, and they are 14th in 5-on-5 save percentage. You add all this up, and you know what's funny? You know what this team really reminds me of? The second year David Quinn was the coach of the Rangers. 2019-20, excuse me, where the underlying numbers were atrocious. They were bottom 5 across the board in all of these, but they had Shesterkin, they had Panarin. That in and of itself was enough to keep the Rangers in the mix, where Panarin was over a point per game. I want to say he finished with like 105-ish points. He was on pace for that before the season stopped because of COVID, but you play at a really high tempo. You have a lot of scoring chances in the game at large, and you bank on your guys making better plays. And look, last night, they outplayed the Rangers like thoroughly. And the Rangers are a team that, even though the results haven't been great for them, they've generally been able to get game control, have a lot of possession. And last night, the Blackhawks outworked them. They were faster. They won more loose pucks. They were able to capitalize on mistakes a little bit easier. And for a Blackhawks team that's really still in the early stages of figuring it out, I would rather be in this boat where the underlying numbers are not great, but we're winning games, because that is an important feeling. You want to give these guys a taste of what it can be like. And I think they're, like you said, probably a year away or so. But at the very least, you give these guys a taste of winning. You keep getting your books in order. You've shedded salary over the last couple of years where you could. And then when the time comes, you pounce. You go out and you make that big restricted free agent trade. You go out there and you sign a third defenseman to round out your group. You go get Knight, a quality backup. And they're not at that point yet, but we're maybe a little bit closer than I thought we were.
I think the biggest thing is you need to see what these players can do in a little bit of a winning culture, because a lot of these guys, Nick, I mean, they've been losing on this team for so long now. So winning these types of games, it's only going to help your culture as you try to keep building back towards being a Stanley Cup contender, just because the Blackhawks haven't been the same team for the last several seasons. So this will only help the culture. It's only going to create more good vibes. And the Blackhawks also really needed this win. They were coming off 2 really bad losses to the Ducks and the Kings. That game against the Ducks, I don't know if you saw it on the deserve to win meter on Money Puck. It was like 99.2% for the Ducks to 0.8 for the Blackhawks. They got absolutely destroyed in that game. They outscored 13-1 in their last 2 games. They really needed this, and they got it with a 3-0 shutout win. And heck, even before this game, they lost 3 of their last 4. So I do think the time is coming when they are going to make the playoffs. Again, I still think it's maybe a year, if not 2 early, but getting these results is only going to help the culture going forward. And then, as you mentioned, they can make potentially a big move in free agency. They can swing a big trade, whether it's at the deadline or whether it's, July when you see some teams make big trades. That's coming, and that's also, of course, only going to help the team moving forward. So I think Blackhawks fans should be really positive about this team right now. I think, in my opinion, they are exceeding expectations this year. I didn't think they would be 13, 11, and 6 to start. I know they're below 500 technically, but I didn't see them being in a playoff spot, Nick, more than 2 months into the season. So they are exceeding expectations, and their entire fan base should be really happy with the direction that this team is going. Still need a few more pieces, but the early returns this season have been really good.
Speaking of big returns and big moves, coming up next on today's edition of Locked On NHL, we're going to talk about Quinn Hughes. And that move probably happens later rather than sooner. But there's an argument to be made, and we're going to make it coming up next. Yeah. The Canucks should get going on this now and maximize their opportunity. NFL Sundays move fast, and one big play makes everything change. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defenses tighten up, or momentum swings after a turnover. Like that Bills-Bengals game on Sunday, the most bananas game of the season so far. With live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as players heat up, and you can bet on individual props like next touchdown scorer, drive results, game totals, and so much more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. Really important game in the NFC South tonight. The Falcons going to Tampa Bay to take on the reeling Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. The Bucs really need this game. The Panthers are looming in the NFC South standings, which is a crazy sentence. But if you want to get right in the middle of the action, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen of the day, and thank you for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On NHL with no interruptions, access to a members-only Discord, and more, all for just $5 a month or for $50 a year. Go to the show notes to learn more. All right, Hunter, we've been talking about Quinn Hughes being moved for a while now, and some of that was just the natural. The Canucks aren't ever going to figure it out, and because they're struggling, they kind of have to reset the clock. And you look where they're at, and you look at the moves they've made over the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, you trade Bo Horvat. You don't really have a lot to show for that. You trade JT Miller, you don't really have a lot to show for that. You have Elias Pettersson, who's got great defensive metrics. Don't get me wrong. His defense looks great when you look at the underlying numbers, but he was signed to that contract to be a 100-point player. You have Demko, who when he's healthy is a top 10 goalie in the world. And you have Quinn Hughes, who when healthy is the best or second best defenseman in the world. Beyond that, Kiefer Sherwood, Evander Kane. I love Brock Besser, one of my favorite players, but this team does not have a lot going for it, and it's older. It doesn't have a lot in the coffer on the way, and it makes a very simple case. And you see teams do this from time to time. If you're a team that's seriously considering trading for Quinn Hughes, and we're going to talk about a few of them coming up in a minute, wouldn't you want him for 2 playoff runs? Wouldn't you like to have him for this upcoming one and then next year? And then over the course of this summer, you work out the contract. And I get it's hairy. I get it's hairy because you're not allowed to offer that contract extension until there's only 1 year remaining. But at the same time, I think we're all adults here and we can work this out to some degree behind the scenes as far as a baseline understanding. But the Canucks really got to do this, man. This organization's dead in the water again. 2 years removed from being one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the entire league.
And that's the thing, like, they squandered that great chance. And, they had Edmonton dead to rights in that second round series. They were 1 win away from going to the conference final, and they weren't able to beat them. And now you see what this team has turned into, a team that is kind of directionless, but also needs to pivot. And I think really needs to start this process of retooling / rebuilding on the fly. Quinn Hughes would obviously be a big part of that. I think we all know he's probably going east. I don't think this is going to be a trade to a fellow Western Conference team. But yeah, if you're me, it doesn't matter where you are in Canada / United States, I would make this trade right now. 2 playoff runs is better than 1. Yeah, I know. You can't get the guarantee that he's going to sign that long-term extension with you. Even when you can, starting next July 1, he still can be like, hey, I'm going to potentially test the waters in free agency, but I'm going to commit to you guys for at least this year. I would still take that risk and be like, hey, what if we win the cup that year? And then we can maybe convince you to stay and all that. So I think even if you're not guaranteed an extension, it's worth the risk. Now, Nick, what teams can be involved here? Obviously, the New Jersey Devils are, I think, the front runner. Both of his brothers, well, yes, both of his brothers play there in Luke Hughes and Jack Hughes. That one has been the big one, I think, for a while now, where I think they really all want to play together. So I think the Devils have the pieces to make it work. It's just a matter of what's going to happen with this one? I've seen the Rangers float out there. I don't really think that makes much sense to me because I think the Rangers need to do a little bit of a pivot themselves. I've even seen Elliot mention the Penguins out there, which, that's your next captain if the Penguins are able to swing that trade. The thing is, Nick, I don't know if they have the assets to make that deal. They have the picks. I just don't know if they have the prospects that Vancouver would want. Though I guess part of me could think, Jim Rutherford, former Penguins GM, maybe he would do them a solid in that situation. I've seen the Flyers mentioned. I've seen almost the entire Metropolitan Division mentioned for a Quinn Hughes trade, if we're being real here. So I think it's going to cost quite a bit, not as much as what the media is going to say, because
it never does. It never does.
100%. What the Canucks are asking for, that's not what they're going to get. It's going to be a bit less. It's still going to be a big blockbuster move, but you're not going to see, Nick, 3 first-round picks moved and 3 top prospects and a couple roster players. No, you're going to get a first-round pick, if not maybe another with a conditional, a top prospect, and then a roster player, and then maybe one or the other, depending on if it's 2 prospects, 1 roster player, 2 roster players, 1 top prospect. That's just really how these big trades work, man. Like, not really how it's been for a while now.
If I were the Devils, other than Jack, other than Bratt, I'm open to trading pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
If you could get, Heischer's only got, I think, 2 years left on his deal. If the Canucks want Nico Hischier, as much as that would be hard to replace, I'd make that work. But I think your package, if you're the Devils, it's centered around Nemitz or it's centered around Dawson Mercer. You have most of your draft picks over the next 2 years. I think they don't have a 7th this year and a 4th next year. That's fine. And then you probably trading something along the lines of an extra pick. You're trading not a ton. And the thing with these trades is I can't think of one of these where it doesn't work for the team getting the superstar player. Like even if you want to go to Pacioretty was really good in Vegas for 2 years before he blew out his Achilles. I know the Habs got Nick Suzuki out of it, and I'm sure the Golden Knights would much rather have Nick Suzuki right now. But at the same time, you got 2 good years out of Pacioretty, and it's taken 4 years, 5 years for Suzuki to become that player. And that's the thing. If you're the Devils, you're levered for right now. Your goalie is old as hell. You've got Jack. You've got Luke. You've got a bunch of young defensemen of varying capabilities. You got Bratt. You got Meyer. You got most of your core locked up. You get 3-4 real good kicks at the can. Dougie's coming off your books after this year. Great. You have real opportunities to make your roster better. You mentioned the Flyers, ton of draft picks. I'm not as convinced about their prospects in a trade in terms of holding value, just because teams would rather have the draft picks than the prospects, because the draft picks could be anything. They could even be prospects. I would mention the Blackhawks here as well. As I had said before, 11 first-round picks over the last 4 years. They've got a ton of liquidity in terms of assets. They've got the cap. They need that bell cow number 1 defenseman who can absorb a big workload, take on difficult minutes. I think this is the type of move that really shifts your team. And there are teams out there we haven't mentioned that are likely in the mix. Would it be that shocking if the Hurricanes were in the mix, who seemingly are interested in everybody whenever they become available? I dare say one of the Florida teams. I know both are pretty cap strapped, but they have both shown the ability to get very inventive when it comes to player acquisition. And I'm sure there are teams in the West, and I know generally we don't see in-division trades, but it's not out of the question somebody out West has the bundle of assets to make this happen. But most importantly, I just want to see Quinn Hughes have an opportunity to play really good, meaningful hockey. He didn't get to play at 4 Nations last year because he was hurt. He'll go to the Olympics this year, but he's been to the playoffs twice in his NHL career. The first time in that bubble playoffs where the Canucks went on the nice little run, and then a couple years ago where they lost to the Oilers in 7. I want to see Quinn Hughes in big minutes in big games against the best players at the most important time, because he's a really good player. And it's a shame that as East Coast guys, he's playing at 10:30 puck drops all the time. And unless I want to deprive myself of even more sleep, I'm not watching.
Nah, it's still worth it. I'm a sicko, and I stay up till about 12:30, 1 a.m. every morning anyway. He's worth staying up till that time just because of how elite he is. So there's that. I mean, we saw him go up against McDavid and Draisaitl in that series a couple years ago, and it was elite puck, Nick. Let's be real. That series was a joy to watch, especially when Quinn Hughes was doing his thing, going from defense to offense, walking the blue line with ease. He was everything for the Canucks on the blue line that series. And it was so fun to see him play in those high stakes games. It just sucks that the Canucks are where they are right now. And I think the only team that I think he would kind of guarantee he would extend right when getting here, even though he can't extend right away, I think he would give a wink, wink, little verbal commitment, would be the Devils, just because his brothers are there. And I think once that, July 1 hits, Nick, I think pen to paper would probably be in like 5-10 minutes. I think he would sign a mega deal with them.
Nobody tampers, Hunter. What are you talking about? In Gary's league, nobody's negotiating behind back doors.
Nobody tampers in any sports league now, Nick. Just even though there's rules. I know. But I think that's the only team that he would do that for. I think any other team, he would kind of wait just because his brothers are in New Jersey. So I'm really curious to see how this plays out. I think that Vancouver should capitalize on it right now. I'm just not sure that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to try to wait it out for as long as they can, try to offer him an extension. And then once that potentially doesn't happen, then I think they're going to look to move him. Again, that's what I think they're going to do. What I would do, I would look to move him right now, get as much value for him as you can, and really just start this process over with a couple of the other players that you have on the roster. Sherwood, we all know, is going to get moved as well. I think they can get a pretty good return on him, but they also don't want to wait too long on that considering the season that he's having. So, Alvin and Rutherford, they have a lot of work to do with this.
We are going to take our second and final break on today's edition of Locked On NHL. When we come back, I'm going to tell you the NHL player I'd like to punch in the face the most, the goalie I would like to have in net for a game for my life, who the best player in the world is, and a whole lot more. Be sure to stick around to this edition of Locked On NHL. The holidays are amazing, but they can get really overwhelming. Travel, gifts, parties, year-end expenses. It's really easy to lose track of money this time of year, and that's exactly why Monarch is a game changer. If you want to keep your finances under control this holidays season, you need to be using Monarch. Rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, simple dashboard. The holiday spending category is a lifesaver. You can see what's left in your gift and travel budget in real time. In minutes, you can check your net worth, link all your accounts, and keep track of contributions before deadlines. Monarch makes money check-ins simple. Just a minute or two each week, and you're completely up to speed. And do not let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your web browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year on monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thank you so much to everybody hanging out with Hunter and I on this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. And I love these anonymous polls The Athletic does. I think they give you a lot of color, a lot of intrigue. And there's 6 questions that they asked that they had the results to. We'll tell you what the answers were. We will tell you what the answers were as we give ours. So the first question, and Nick Cousins won this again, who has the most punchable face in the NHL, Hunter?
He's up there, honestly, and I know he hasn't done anything in a while. Tom Wilson is up there for me. He's just, you look at his face and it's just like, yeah, I want someone to sucker punch that guy. Like, I think and it's not just because he's been a thorn in the Penguins side for a long time, but you just look at him and it's just like, ugh. For a while, it was TJ Oshie when he was playing. He had a very big punchable face, but I think Tom Wilson takes the cake for me, but Nick Cousins is also very much up there.
Cousins is up there. Marchand, of course, finished second again. He's usually up there as well. For me, I have 2 for you. Number 1, you mentioned Tom Wilson. I'm still mad. Number 2, he's on the team, but JT Miller. I hate looking at JT Miller's face. He's always got a puss. He's always got a dirty look. Dude, just play hockey. At some point, you actually have to make plays. It's not just about looking scary. It's not looking tough. Number 2, the team you would most like to sign with, the Florida Panthers won this poll again this year. I would be going with Vegas of these options. I think Vegas, lifestyle-wise, tax advantages, the team is always going for it. I think Vegas for me would be the first choice.
Yeah, Vegas or Dallas for me, kind of a tie. Dallas, really fun city, great food. Vegas, you have the atmosphere, all that good stuff. So I think it's a 1A, 1B, either one of those for me.
Yeah. Team you're least likely to sign with, the Jets won this again. It's one of those teams in the Great White North. I'm probably not signing with the Flames or the Jets. If I had to pick one of those, I would probably sign with the Jets because you at least get to play with Hellebuck and Kyle Connor. The Flames are in rough shape. They play in the second oldest building in the NHL. The Flames would be a tough sell for me right now.
Calgary for me as well. It's too far up north. It's going to be way too cold for me there. They're not very good. Hard pass for me. But yeah, definitely the Flames.
Dream teammate. Sidney Crosby won this again. Sid's a great answer. I don't think there's a wrong answer for who you would want to play with. I think it also depends on like what you envision yourself as. Like when I played hockey like 20 years ago, I was a defenseman. So I'm thinking I probably want to play with Quinn Hughes because he could do a majority of the work and I wouldn't have to do a whole lot. But Makar would be very fun, as any of these superstars would be. I mean, we always joke if you throw one of us next to Sid, he'd get you 10 points by the end of the Mark Donk tweet. It's always somebody who's going to put up 40 points on Sid's right or left wing.
Sid or McDavid. That's it for me. I mean, what more can you say, really? But back when I played, Nick, I was a winger. So just set me up for a few points, set me up for a few goals. I'll take it. So Sid or Connor for me.
Goalie in a game for your life. Shesterkin won this year. I think I'm going with Igor. He's been the best playoff goalie since he entered the league. If you wanted to make an argument for Bob or Vasilevsky, sure. But I think those are the final three choices.
I'm going to go Vasilevsky. When he's on, when you look at his big game moments, I'd go with him. Barely. It's very close, though. Again, Nick, if Russia were at the Olympics, I think Vasilevsky would probably be the starter. So,
he would be. I think that's there's an understanding there, and there's a mutual respect there, which does help. And then the last question they had the answers to. There were more questions, but this one is really the last one. We're quantifiable. We can answer. Who's the best player in the world? McDavid still won, but the gap is closing.
Yeah, McDavid. I think he's number one. McKinnon's number two. You can put, Matthews pretty high up there. Sid is still very, very good, especially offensively. But in terms of best overall, when you looked not just for this season, it's Connor McDavid. But Nate's coming, man. He's been electric this year, and he's probably going to win the Hart, honestly.
Okay. The last question I have, this was not in the athletics set of questions, but I'm going to ask you this now. Who is going to win the gold medal at the Olympics in February? I will be picking Canada because until America beats Canada,
it's probably going to be Canada. But yeah. I do think this is the best chance the United States has had in a very long time. As we keep saying on the show here, Nick, got to get the margins of the roster right and take the best skilled players. We all know how skilled Canada is going to be, but the U.S. is going to be right there. That said, I'm going to take Canada by a little bit. I think it's going to be Canada and the U.S. though in the gold medal game. I
hope so. I mean, that's what we said back in February this year when we did the Thursday show because the Four Nations final was on a Thursday. That morning, I thought America was playing better in the tournament, but we sat down and the red light went on, and I'm not picking against Sid with a gold medal on the line and a leaf on his chest. Come on. He's up. Team Canada Sidney Crosby is up there with Sunday Tiger Woods in the red polo, Game 6 Klay Thompson. Like, you're just not messing with that guy. You're not messing with Canada Sidney Crosby. It's the same way you're not messing with Team Canada Marie-Philippe Poulin. You're just not messing around with these guys in these biggest of spots.
Right. And Nick, are you ready for the shorter rink? Because apparently that's going on now. And they've had so much time to get ready for this. And it's like, how is this where we're at with the rink, man? Come on. It's embarrassing.
It's not a great look for everybody involved. The NHL doing the hands up. Well, it's an IIHF problem. It's not our problem. We're not the ones running this. We don't want to impose. Gary, Bill, you have the entire continent of Europe. Make a few phone calls, find some rinks. We have world-class travel available. Send the guys to Europe. If they got to play in Switzerland, in Denmark, in Norway, in Sweden, in Finland, wherever you got to send them and let's play hockey. It should not be this difficult. That'll do it for this Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. Thank you so much to everybody that made Locked On NHL their first listen of the day. If Locked On NHL was your top listen to podcast on Spotify, you can send a screenshot to any of the national Locked On accounts on whatever social media platform you prefer, and you could get access to the Everydayer Club for free for the first month, access to that Discord server and other content, including ad-free episodes. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night, breaking down every game every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned in June. Hunter and I will talk to you guys next week.